Carnival Cruise Lines is going back in business, or at least taking back to the high seas. The first route in some 6 months, and it's going to be in Italy. The Costa line will set sail from Sunday. Carnival's stock is down 60%. It had been down much more, so it's a marginal rally, as you can see from the graph there. The services announced so far: the Italy-based Costa line began over the weekend. Germany's AIDA line starts in November. In North America so far, operations voluntarily suspended, along with other major lines, until the end of next month at least, and that affects those states with major ports. And the season is suspended in South America. 21 to 22 season is though on sale. Australia Carnival has paused all operations through to the end of the year. Arnold Donald is the chief exec of Carnival Cruises. Let's meet him in St. Louis, as they say. Arnold, it is good to have you. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. All right, so there's an irony here, isn't there? That the European country that was at the worst of the pandemic at one point is now the country where you feel it's safe enough to begin cruises again.
You know, first of all, Richard, always good to be with you. So good to see you. Yes, I guess there's a bit of an irony, but at the same time, if you think about it, the pandemic moved from east to west. So, you know, it's not out of the question that resumption would also move from east to west.
If you look at the measures being taken, the tests, which are all understandable, but the tests, the swab tests, essentially everybody on that ship has had a COVID test before the thing sails. These are, and with social distancing, I mean, can you have a good time? Is it worth going to all this testing and trouble for what's a relatively short cruise?
Yeah, first of all, it is a 7-day cruise. As you mentioned, it sailed on September 6th. Costa Deliciosa is our first ship. Costa Diadema will be sailing out of Genoa, I believe, on September 19th. And the Deliciosa will continue its 7-day sailings out of Trieste. Italian residents only, or Italian residents only, in Italian ports only initially. But of course, it's worth it. The guests are still going to have a great time. They're still doing shore excursions. They have to stay on the shore excursions that we define. But a lot of the testing, of course, most of that happens prior to boarding the ship. And so once you're on board, there are additional measures, of course, protocols. There's some physical distancing. There's mask wearing in public spaces or wherever you can't achieve the physical distancing. There's, of course, lots of hand sanitizers and other personal hygiene things. But the essence is still there. You're still going to have a good time. You still have great food and great dining. You're still going on excursions and experiencing new places. And it's still a good experience. Now, you have to keep in mind, Richard, that, you know, the incidence of COVID-19 is reduced in the Italian population. I mean, it's much lower than what it was, obviously, at the time when Italy was making the news on that.
So it's difficult to overstate the significance, in a sense, of getting a ship back on the seas, but also the huge amount that's at stake. God forbid if anything were to go wrong. So to that extent, how much of this Italian and German experience is preparing you for the US resumption, whenever that might be?
Well, as you know, more than half our business is from guests from outside the United States. So it's very important to us in that market. That market is a very significant market for us. We have 9 world-leading cruise line brands, several of which are based in Europe. You mentioned Costa, we just talked about it. AIDA, you mentioned earlier, our German line. We also have Cunard and P&O, 2 of our British lines. And then some of our US-based lines, Holland America Princess, they also sail lots of European guests. So it's really important we do it right everywhere. And so it's not just a matter of testing there for later. This is actually, you know, real-time experience that's relevant where it is. Having said that, I think that, you know, the measures that are being taken are the point in time. So as you know, this virus has evolved, treatments have evolved, testing has evolved, everything's evolving. And what's working
Right.
right now in Italy may or may not be required when it's time to sail in the U.S.
When we spoke earlier in the crisis, there was a distinct flavour, you know, of financial crisis as well, as the fleet is laid up and questions about the survivability. Can you now say that Carnival, not out of the rough seas, but that you are at least financially smooth sailing?
I'm sure all those funds were intended, Richard, knowing you, but the reality is that we had to raise over $12 billion of new capital to give us a long runway for a pause that could be extended where we have no revenue. We've gone through serious cash preservation measures. As you know, this has been devastating for travel and leisure broadly, and certainly has been a challenge for the cruise industry. But we have raised capital that gives us a long runway with no revenue, you know, through at least 12 months, if not longer. And we've taken the other steps to ensure that. So it's been a trying time financially, but we rallied. Our people have rallied, the markets, investors have rallied with us, the banks have been tremendously supportive. And so we feel financially we're in a position to weather the storm, and we're anxious to get back.
You know, I'm sure you found this yourself with seafaring puns. The moment you start them, you go ever deeper into them, and before long, Arnold, you're wondering what on earth you've got yourself into and how you're going to dig yourself out. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Arnold Donald from Carnival.